Right, so here are the facts from Equalitex, site for gay rights. 7 equality index out of 100, not out of 10. The public doesn't really like homosexuals either. Palestine is less safe for homosexuals than most African and most world countries. And they're not even allowed to donate blood.
Let me start by saying, as a Muslim immigrant, I do support the LGBTQ community. Just so you don't get the wrong idea. But there are Americans out here who don't support the LGBTQ community and they're labeled as hate groups. When Palestinians don't support the LGBTQ community, they get support instead. How does that work?
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. We have to do some pretty fascinating psychoanalysis here, okay, of a group of people that, again, I find to be extremely fascinating, right? As a third-party observer to foreign conflicts, okay, that, you know, in my opinion, I personally think that, you know, as Americans, we should probably be more concerned about America, right, than what is going on overseas. But, you know, hey, there are a lot of people that are passionate about this issue of Israel and Palestine. And I feel like, again, the most interesting group of individuals are the so-called queers for Palestine, who are very passionate in their support for the Palestinians, even though, okay, we know that based off the religion and the lifestyle and some of the more extremely conservative, you know, values that these people have, that, you know, maybe, just maybe, I'm not sure if life would be great as a so-called LGBTQ person in this part of the world, right? But regardless of that, they're very passionate about supporting Palestine. And is at the point now where you have some people, okay, I'm not saying all people, but I'm saying, you know, you have some people who have basically tried to justify some of the atrocities that have happened during this conflict that I don't think are justified at all, simply because of the oppression that they feel like they have in common with the Palestinians. And I want to talk about it. But before I talk about it, I want to just make it clear for you guys, again, that I am praying for all sides in this conflict. There are Muslims, Christians, and Jews that are being killed as a result of this conflict. And I think that this is a tragedy. And I am praying for peace. However, I do want to react to this pretty fascinating video by this person, this queer person for Palestine. They posted this on TikTok, and it's a pretty fascinating video in response to people telling this person about, you know, hey, maybe, just maybe, you know, life wouldn't be all that great for a queer person in Palestine. Take a look.
I keep getting comments that if I was in Gaza, I would be killed for being queer. And first off, there are queer people in Gaza, and they're being killed for being Palestinian. Secondly, I don't need to move across the ocean to experience violence for being queer. I literally had to evacuate my place 6 months ago because people were so violent and sending me death threats, literally hunting me down for being trans. This is in the United States of America. The United States of America for trans people is in stage 7 and 8. Palestine is in 9 and 10. There is a reason why the United States was the only country who vetoed a United Nations Security Council resolution. There is a reason why our government is so adamant about saying level the place. There is a reason why this country continues to ignore what's happening in Palestine, because our country is built on genocide. And by the way, Hitler, he also attacked queer people. There's a reason why we were forced to wear pink triangles. And also, he literally got his ideas for concentration camps from the United States of America. History is repeating itself right now, and how dare you try to weaponize my queerness in order to manipulate me to support genocide. I will never stand by Israel's actions. I won't stand by Israel in general. And if you're queer and you are standing with Israel, you're wrong, and you really need to take a step back and evaluate your morals and values.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Now, again, the point of this video is not to talk about the complexities of what's going on over there between Israel and Palestine and Hamas. The point is not to take anybody's side Okay, I'm on the side of peace and I'm on the side of America. Okay, that's what I want. I'm pro-America and I'm pro-peace, right? That's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to talk about some of the interesting and fascinating kind of psychology going on in the heads of the people over here in America who have equated their struggle with what they see as a struggle and oppression of the Palestinian people. And that is why they're so passionate about defending the Palestinians, even if the interest of the Palestinians in regards to their lifestyle, okay, in regards to what they adhere to, is not aligned with the progressive values of the people that are so passionate about supporting them, right? It is, once again, we have this woke ideology of intersectionality that is bringing people together who otherwise don't have much in common at all. It's truly fascinating stuff, okay? Because we've done videos about this before, right? Muslims have been protesting in the United States and Canada against LGBTQ books being pushed in school. Now, these Muslims have been smeared as bigots, hateful, homophobic, transphobic, because they don't want their children to be exposed to that type of content in school. Okay. Now, these are Muslims that live in the West. Now, you can live out of the West as a Muslim. You can actually live in the Middle East, and those Muslims are significantly more conservative than the Muslims that are in the West. However, the LGBTQ community, or some of the progressive activists, that is, because not just LGBTQ, you also have, the race hustlers of America too, people like BLM. They're very passionate about supporting the Palestinians, and in some cases, even supporting Hamas, right? They're passionate about it because they believe that what they have in common bonds them together more so than the clear and obvious differences in regards to values, right? Well, both groups are oppressed, right? Since we're both oppressed, then I have to defend them against the oppressor, because their oppression is similar to the oppression that I am experiencing in the United States, right? In which, if you listen to this individual claims that LGBTQ people, trans people, are in a stage of genocide here in the United States, which I respectfully disagree with. I don't condone any violence against any individual based off of any protected characteristic or political association or political ideology. I don't condone any type of violence against, these individuals. However, I got questions about if there's a so-called trans genocide in the United States, because we went over these numbers before. There's only been about 40 or so individuals that are trans in the United States that have been murdered, okay? And out of those, we have no clue how many of those were murdered simply because they were trans, because it was a hate crime. It happens very, 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 very rarely in this country. It is extremely rare, okay? Now, again, the loss of lives of those individuals, obviously a tragic thing, but they're trying to take those 40 individuals or so who's lost their lives and trying to say that they're in a genocide, which, I mean, if you just look at the number of trans people in the country versus the number of trans people that are murdered per year, that's just simply not the case. And that you're not even accounting for the reason why, right? Was it actually something that was a hate crime? So because of this constructed oppression in the minds of these individuals, they are overlooking the fact that the people that they're supporting, their values overall, 99% of them do not align with their progressive values. However, they are so passionate about supporting these people simply because of intersectionality of, well, they're oppressed and I'm oppressed, therefore I must side with them. And what's even more fascinating is that this same type of logic and reasoning when it comes to intersectionality does not apply when it comes to minority conservatives, right? Or conservatives that are minorities, or blacks for Trump, or LGBTQ people for Trump, right? If you're LGBTQ for Trump, they say, no, you're siding with your oppressor, right? That's what they tell you. If you're black and you support Trump, you're siding with your oppressor. They're homophobic. They're racist. You're siding with racists. You're not actually LGBTQ. You're not actually black. You get your identity stripped. However, again, if you're LGBTQ and you side with Palestine or Palestinians, you're a freedom fighter, right? You're fighting oppression. It's fascinating stuff. It really is. And it's at the point where this ideology, okay, this woke ideology of, again, intersectionality, bringing people together, right? What do we all have in common in the fight against the so-called oppressor? A lot of times they consider the oppressor to be the white man, okay? They use that as a means to justify violence, right? That's what they do, okay? Or so it seems. For example, the reason why the Free Palestine movement, okay, and I guess, the plight of the Palestinians is being compared with BLM, why you have BLM supporting the Palestinians so passionately, again, is because of this idea of intersectionality, in the sense that, well, we're both fighting back against our oppressor, and any act of violence that we do as a result of oppression is justified, right? It's justified. Again, this is why you had some people that were refusing to condemn the attack that was done by Hamas, the tragic loss of life, which I think personally, the tragic loss of life, the killing of civilians that happens on both sides of the aisle should be condemned, right? If we're going to be consistent about this, both sides should be condemned when civilians are killed unjustly, right? But the very dangerous and extreme idea that is showing up here, right, in regards to the BLM movement and the people trying to justify some of the atrocities that have happened as a result of this conflict, the common theme is this idea that if you are oppressed, then anything you do, any act of violence is somehow justified in virtue of the fact that you are oppressed, right? That the person that committed the act of violence is not morally wrong, okay, or that they shouldn't be condemned because, again, they're just lashing out against the oppressor. Therefore, that is the reason why these individuals try to justify or refuse to condemn what is obviously an atrocity that should be condemned, okay? Or, for example, take a situation where a black person happens to lose their life at the hands of police after they were resisting arrest, after they tried to fight a police officer. Like, for example, the situation that happened out in Georgia where Leonard Cure was shot and killed by police after being released from prison for being wrongly arrested or imprisoned. And this guy was going 100 miles per hour. The police pulled him over. It was a routine traffic stop. The dude gets out the car, starts trying to fight the police, starts trying to strangle the police. And the police, unfortunately, has to shoot the suspect, okay, in order to stop the threat, in order to keep his own life. Now, the race hustlers of America have come out and tried to basically blame the police officer and say that the police officer should not have shot him, even though the police officer's life was clearly in danger. The guy was trying to fight the police officer. The guy, you could argue, was trying to kill the police officer. And you have people like, again, Ben Crump coming out here saying, well, the guy died because he was black, or that he was shot because he was black.
Absolutely do not believe if he was a white citizen, he would have been killed for a traffic stop.
We don't believe, we know.
Yeah, so they don't believe, they know. They know that Leonard Cure would not have died if he was white, right? The police officer would not have shot a man trying to fight him if the man trying to fight and kill the police officer was white. So I'm assuming that these people really believe that this police officer would have allowed himself to potentially lose his life if a white man was fighting and trying to strangle him during a routine traffic stop. That the only reason he pulled out his gun to shoot was because Leonard Cure was black. Again, a fascinating line of reason and logic because it lacks any type of reason and logic, because there are many white men that are killed every single day at the hands of police when they do things like this, right? They just don't talk about it because you can't make money off that, right? You can't make money off of, police officers killing white men. Nobody cares about that, right? It's not a race conversation. You can't play the race angle, so they ignore it, right? But the overall logic here, the overall kind of reasoning here that is coming from these individuals is that, well, it was unjustified because Leonard Cure ultimately was oppressed. He just had got out of prison for being wrongfully arrested, right, or wrongfully charged and found guilty of something he didn't do, which is a symptom of the oppression that black people experience in this country, right? Being wronged or the injustices at the hands of the criminal justice system. This is what they talk about all the time. And therefore, because he's oppressed and because he was killed by his oppressor, the police, who's a part of the criminal justice system, right, and part of law enforcement, that is why his act was unjustified, right? That's why this police officer's actions in regards to defending his life was unjustified. The police officer would have been better off letting Leonard Cure continue to fight him and potentially take his life because Leonard Cure is oppressed, right? And Leonard Cure fighting back is justified because he's oppressed. And again, this type of intersectionality between people who feel like they're oppressed is why you see these groups of people who have nothing in common with the individuals that they're supporting in Palestine in regards to values, right? Like real actual values and lifestyles and beliefs, aligning with them so passionately because of the intersectionality of oppression, right? They feel some connection to these individuals because of what they experience here in the United States, even though I would argue that what they experience here in the United States is probably nothing compared to what the Palestinians experience in their living conditions, right? Just in virtue of the fact that, they are living in what a lot of people have characterized as an open air prison. But again, regardless of that, it doesn't matter. The oppression is what brings them together. It's truly a fascinating thing that we're saying. And I think that is actually really dangerous. And I don't use that term lightly, right? I don't come out here and just call everything I disagree with dangerous. But in this case, this reasoning and logic where we're seeing in America, where acts of violence are being justified because the person that did the act of violence is seen as oppressed, is a truly dangerous thing that we have to confront, because that ideology is growing very quickly and heavily in this country. It is an ideology that must be confronted and debated and pushed back against, because again, ultimately these people are giving a pass for people who claim to be oppressed to literally do anything and it be justified in virtue of the fact that they feel like they're oppressed. It's a very fascinating thing that you kind of seeing an extreme version of when it comes to this conflict in Israel and with Hamas and Palestine. So I just want to talk about that because, again, this is something I'm observing as a third party, and this is kind of a reoccurring theme that we're continuing to see over and over and over again as a means to justify unjustifiable violence. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.